Hi, Barry Eaton here, and welcome to Radio Out There. And this week on the program, Pete Smith joins me from the Institute for Quantum Consciousness. We will discuss many things, but basically, are we in an evolution of consciousness, and what is in store for us all, individuals and the world? Pete Smith, this week on Radio Out There. Pete, wonderful to see you. And there you are, right up in the north of Australia, North Queensland at Cairns, and I'm in Sydney, but the sun is shining. So what a nice day.
Yeah, it's beautiful up here. We've got the sun shining, but we've got the humidity to go with it, Barry.
Well, you can have that. Now, we haven't caught up for a while, and we are reaching the end of the year, so all sorts of things are coming, and the world is, of course, getting more chaotic almost every day. But I picked up your first book the other day, Quantum Consciousness, Expanding Your Personal Universe. And I think not a bad place to start is, and I'll quote, in Richard Barrett's 7 Levels of Consciousness model, he talks about the 4th level, where we move from the levels of self-interest towards the levels of common good. He talks about that as transformation. So are we in a transformation evolution at the present time, in your opinion?
Absolutely, Barry. And I think it's coming at us from all angles. We see so much shifting and changing around us. It's like we're breaking through that glass ceiling that's kept us trapped for so long into, some people describe it as a golden age. I think it's the age of opportunity where we surrender some of our conditioning and take humanity to a new place.
Well, certainly it's a golden era for certain companies and multi-billionaires and whatever. They're getting more and more gold all the time. But for the rest of the people, they are starting to think, hang on, this is not fair. I want to do something about it. But what can I, as a little person out here, what can I do? So what can I do?
Well, I think, it's like the Dalai Lama says, if you want world peace, find peace from within yourself first. So if we want to transform the world, we've got to transform ourselves first. And it's against the things that are invisible to us, Barry. I feel like our conditioning from society, from family, from how we're meant to be. I mean, you and I both know that we are all magnificence beyond our knowing. And as people start to discover,
everybody we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody. And when more and more people discover that creates a shift in the overall consciousness where we all feel and live our magnificence in different ways.
The word consciousness, I wonder whether a lot of people don't even know what the depth of the word is, because I think, well, I'm either conscious or unconscious. If I'm unconscious, I'm out to it, I don't know what's going on. But I'm conscious now because I'm awake. But is that the only definition of consciousness?
Well, I think you can talk to any researchers or writers in this field, Barry, and get a unique and individual one. And that's what consciousness is. It's a unique expression of who we truly are at our deepest level. But if I look at it at a more of an overall, I believe that consciousness is the fabric of reality.
Well, yeah, and a lot of religions, Eastern religions, or belief systems, say that consciousness is actually the soul.
Well, consciousness is the fabric of reality, and our soul is part of that fabric. So I can understand why they'd say that. I think it's hard to sort of nail it down with the human intellect. It's something that you need to experience for yourself. For example, with the work that you and I do, somebody goes to another lifetime. That's an expression of their consciousness in a different place in time and space.
Yeah.
You go into nature and you feel connected to the forest. That's consciousness. That's you blending with the environment around you. You meet somebody and you have a synergy with them that goes past, how long you've known them. I mean, that's a shared consciousness. If we look at families, they have their own family consciousness. For me, it's consciousness is the whole fabric of reality of which we're a part. And we just take our awareness to those different places in that fabric to learn, to grow, to heal, to help others.
It's a multi-layer, isn't it? Because our consciousness can also split into various realities. You've talked about that before in your books.
Yeah, absolutely. There's, consciousness is not trapped in this human body. And there's been so many people show us that over the years with near-death experiences, past life regression, life between lives, even the quantum consciousness work where we deliberately visit other realities and parallel lives. So our consciousness, rather than say it's transportable, it's expansive into more than just this realm. And I feel that, the more that we're open to that exploration, the more we can find out who we truly are and understand that we're not what we've been told. We're something far more magnificent that is multidimensional and exists outside of time and space.
Yeah, fair enough. So when we get back to the evolution of consciousness, what are we all seeing at the present time as individuals and also as a collective?
Well, look, the question can be, are we evolving the consciousness of humanity, or are we simply remembering who we really are? Yeah. And for me, having worked with people in a very deeply and profound, expanded, remembered state, I can ask people in the work that I do, how many lifetimes has this been a pattern for you? And they might say 8. Okay, well, let's bring all 8 in. And let's help them to let go of this pattern across the lineage of your soul. I mean, we talk about this stuff all the time because we move outside of time and space. So for me, it's really more of a remembering than it is us actually shifting. But as we remember, we do see changes in the fabric of reality, because as we become more and more remembered, I think that ripples out from us and moves into everything around us.
Do we have to be open to that? Because I know most people these days, I think over 50% are accepting that we all have many, many lifetimes, past lives. You and I have worked on that together.
Yeah.
You're a past life expert. But for those people that don't accept past lives, how can they bring their collective souls in? Is that easy for them, or do they have to be sort of dragged, kicking and screaming?
Well, it is about a state of readiness. And our individual and unique consciousness needs to be ready to be awakened. You need to be ready to remember. Yeah. And we see a lot of the turmoil in the world at the moment. And we've talked about this off air before, but, I think we have to experience this turmoil in order to say that that's enough. We're looking for a place of peace. We're looking for a better planet for our children. We're looking for a different type of society that's not permeated with fear and materialism. We simply want to return to something that's far more peaceful and progressive. And I think people wake up in different ways. One person may explore past lives. Some people might move out through consciousness to meet an alternate self who made a different decision. Some people may just have had enough and move out of apathy and even into a state of anger, which means at least they're having a reaction to the world around them and no longer just putting up with what we have in society.
Yeah, but we have to do this as humanity, don't we? Because we can do it individually within ourselves, but until we wake up as a majority, shall we say, change is not going to be happening easily, is it?
I think there's a critical mass factor in this, Barry.
What critical mass?
Well, when more people remember than choose not to remember.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the pendulum swings in that direction. There's a weight of numbers, and we know that we're seeing signs even in traditional society where people are looking in places that they weren't before. And if I can offer an example, I just finished reading Dan Brown's most recent book.
Yes, that's on my reading list. How is it?
Yeah. Everyone remembers him from The Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons, Tom Hanks running around, getting into trouble at the movie theatre.
He's been very quiet for some time, Dan Brown. Hasn't put a book out for, I don't know.
8 years.
8 years. And I thought it was about a decade, yeah.
And in those 8 years, he went off, he was drawn to go and explore consciousness.
Oh, was he?
Now, he would have been I can only imagine his publisher, given how many books this guy sells.
Oh,
and
really?
you and I know what it's like to work with a big publisher. I can only imagine that they were pulling their hair out, starting to wonder, when's your next book? When's your next book? But to be true to who he is, he went off and he studied for 8 years. He did research. He looked at near-death experiences. He looked at neuroscience. He went and he spoke to a lot of people. And his latest book, and it's the same characters, Robert Langdon, the Tom Hanks character from the movies.
Yeah.
It's the same character, but he delves into the realm of non-local consciousness. And he has a dear colleague. I don't want to spoil the book for everybody. But
no spoilers.
He has a dear colleague. The other main lead is a woman who is a neuroscientist who has been looking at non-local consciousness, and she's had a lot of discoveries around that. And of course, it's the usual espionage, and people don't want her to publish the book, and et cetera, et cetera. I won't go any further into that. But what I love about what Dan Brown's doing is that he is exploring the metaphysical through his writings, and as one of the most renowned writers in the world, who sells probably the most books, one of them, for him to go in this direction and for him to have done the research behind it, 8 years of research, and then he's talking about non-local consciousness, there's got to be something to it, or his publisher or he wouldn't take a risk on it. So what I love about that, because the whole concept of reincarnation, as you mentioned before, half people are sort of across the line now, or open to it. The whole concept of reincarnation and past lives is built on non-local consciousness.
Yeah. Well, that's fascinating. So what's the name of the book?
It's Secret of Secrets.
Secret of Secrets.
Yeah, so it's quite well named, I think, because it's the great secret that we want to get in on and we want to remember and see what it has for us.
Yeah. So the character that played by Tom Hanks has evolved in the last 8 years. Is that right?
Well, it's interesting in the balance that he plays, and I'm not giving too much
away.
No,
don't give it away. But
anyone who's read anyone who's read Dan Brown's books knows Robert Langdon as a scientific fellow, and he's the skeptic. Whereas the other character, his long-term friend, and she's the neuroscientist who has gone and explored a lot of the non-local stuff and come up with all of these incredible discoveries. Some of the conversations that they have at that individual level echo society, the believer versus the non-believer. So
I had to turn something off then.
Yeah. So that's it's an interesting tete-a-tete between the two of them in the dialogue, which probably is where the reader is at as they continue through the book. So it's very cleverly written. I read the Da Vinci Code many years ago, of course, as like most of the world, and thought it was great, challenging some of society's thoughts around Mary Magdalene, etc. But this takes his writing to a whole new level, I feel, and the testimony to his commitment is that 8 years of research.
Yeah. So do you think he's done this consciously to try and help people in the world, or just sell books?
I think he's a believer.
Oh.
I feel that if it was about the book revenues, he probably wouldn't have waited 8 years. So I feel that he believes he's onto something. I saw an interview with him and Brian Greene, the quantum physicist, and they had an interesting conversation. And I felt that Brian was very much locked in the science, but Dan Brown was very open. It's an interesting dynamic in the interview itself. It's out there on YouTube. But I got from the way he put himself across that he's probably open to things that he wasn't before he did the research.
Right.
I think it's completely opened him up.
Well, that's fantastic. So that brings me back to our original chat. We're talking about, are we in an evolution of consciousness? How do we know? He has already made a lot of progress. How do we know as individuals that we're making progress?
Well, there's a wonderful piece of work that some of the listeners may have heard of called The Map of Consciousness by Dr. David Hawkins.
Oh, yes.
A double PhD guy, a knighthood in Denmark. He was a really serious guy. Ran the biggest psychiatrist practice in New York City, which, there's plenty of psychiatry practices in New York City, I think. Yeah. So he built the Map of Consciousness through applied kinesiology, where he measured the human emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Now, interestingly, on his Map of Consciousness, he's got things like apathy down the bottom. So when
down the bottom,
yeah, and things like shame, guilt, apathy, all of those are down the bottom.
Mm.
But as people's consciousness starts to evolve, they go through things like anger, pride, fear. So when people don't care, that's a really low level of consciousness.
Mm.
But when people want to have a reaction, then that actually means their consciousness is wakening up.
Mm.
And if you look at the anger and fear around the planet at the moment about everybody being, triggered by something, I mean, that's just fear coming out. But as you move up his Map of Consciousness, you get through things like acceptance and willingness and reason, and we move through the things like love, peace, grace. So I can actually see humanity going up. The people that didn't have opinions about, if we look at the American landscape, people that didn't have opinions about politics before, or didn't have an opinion about this or about that, or gender or whatever it might be, all of this stuff is blowing up, and it's moving up through this Map of Consciousness towards a place where we move through and find the peace.
Good. Just brings to mind that I wonder whether or not things are happening, because, as you know, in the last few days, before we got aware, Bill Gates came out to say, humanity is not going to be destroyed by climate change. Oh, no, it's not as bad as everybody's saying. And he did that after COVID. He flipped. And here we are now flipping once again. He's trying to get his shall we say, his options open there. But I wonder whether or not he is recognizing, along with a lot of other people, that fear is no longer the weapon that they have used in the past.
I think you're right, Barry. And, I mean, you and I have shared our views on climate change, and I think it's quite a politicized landscape, and really it's perhaps a new source of new taxation for the average person. But, for me, they told us 20 years ago that the polar ice caps were going to melt.
Yeah.
They're still there. I mean, they told us back in the 1920s that the world was going to cool and we were heading for a new ice age. So it's like the climate agenda. It's not now global warming or global cooling. It's now called climate change. That way they can back it whether it goes up or down.
The climate has been changing for millions of years. Yeah, but we're not going to go into all of that, because let people work that one out for themselves. But for me, the question is, fear has been used by so many people, the elites, the politicians. They've used it for quite some time, still are. Are we on the turn? And is that part of our evolution of consciousness?
Yeah. Look, I feel it is, because I think I can see us moving up the scale as you go back. If I go back to the Hawkins scale for a moment, after we see things like fear, you get to a point where courage cuts in, at the point where the emotions go from negative to positive. And I think a lot of people are saying, I see people talking about different aspects of fear, even on social media, and all of the comments now, no, I don't believe you this time. I'm not going to put up with that stuff. No, this is crap. Or they're doing laughing faces at some of this fear stuff that's thrown at us about climate or medical or whatever else it might be. And, I really feel that people are waking up and they're sick of being trapped in fear.
Yeah.
And just by seeing it for what it is, it sets them free.
Okay. Pete, why are we seeing so much separation at the present time in Australia, in the United States, in Britain, in Europe, all around the world? Separation is there. Why are we dividing ourselves down the middle, or are we being divided?
I think it's a bit of both, Barry, really. I mean, for me, things need to come into your line of sight so you can change them. And we are seeing separation everywhere. And once we're over the separation, that'll be our path to oneness and a collective energy for humanity. I was talking to a dear friend of mine in the US yesterday, and she was talking about this, particularly in the American landscape. And I said to her, I said, your whole country has been founded on separation. Oh, it was the white man and the red man. Then it was the War of Independence with Britain. It was the Civil War. The Civil War. North versus South. You know that one.
I'll have more to say about that later in our program. So
okay, good.
Hold that one in mind, everybody.
Let's come back to that one. Black versus white. It's the rainbow people versus the other people. I mean, the whole of the United States has been built on separation, Democrat versus Republican. They have a history of separation, and it needs to come into their line of sight so they can become Americans together. And I said this to my friend. I said, I think it's coming to the fore that, when you've had enough of something, that's the only time you want to change.
Well, that's true. But of course, we've got to that stage now where if you don't believe what I believe, you are not only wrong, you are dangerous and spreading misinformation.
Well, that's right. And you've deeply offended me.
Yeah. I mean, have we gone as far as we can, or as far as we have done? Is our evolution of consciousness going to help bring us back together? What do you think?
Look, I think it will. And I feel that as we face issues for this planet, as we move towards cosmic disclosure, and we've talked about that before, and you and I have some dear friends in that industry. As we move more towards disclosure, and we see that there's nothing like finding yourselves on one planet and that we're all human beings when you know that there are countless other civilizations and planets out there.
That's for sure.
If that can't draw us together, nothing can. And I'm not talking about a Hollywood alien invasion thing. No. I'm talking about us coming together and realizing that we're not that different after all once we start to meet some of these other civilizations. And we have already in the background. I mean, it's not like that hasn't happened.
I mean, in my book, Past Lives Unveiled, that you helped me with so much. You took me back in an out-of-body experience, and I connected with another aspect of my consciousness, as you may remember, and it was out there looking at a planet that was absolutely destroyed because of lack of love. Now, that's in my book. You helped me with that. You took me right out, connected me with the other aspect of myself. And is that not what's happening right now in our situation? The lack of love, not just between you and me and you and Tommy, but universally.
Yeah, I mean, that was a wonderful journey that we took together that day, and the messages from that book, Barry, echo even more relevance into the world today, because that civilization that you discovered through Leader, I think was his name.
Leader was his name, yeah.
Yeah, the findings of that session were that he was observing a civilization that had lost its way and gone too far into technology and had forgotten about love, if I remember correctly.
And it was totally destroyed.
And it was totally destroyed by the technology. Now, as everybody gets on the AI bandwagon, and you and I as authors, we put our heart and soul into a book, but, when an AI can pop a book out in a space of, 2 hours with a whole plot and a whole recipe and all that sort of stuff, for me, if the heart and soul isn't there, then what sort of book is that going to be in terms of its consciousness?
Precisely. And that's what's happening. I believe certain institutions at the moment are putting a theme out and getting AI to write 4 or 5 different versions on that theme. Where is it going to go?
Well, I can offer a snippet of feedback. As you know, at Michael Newton Institute, we do a quarterly journal called Stories of the Afterlife. We're actually getting feedback from readers saying this case doesn't read the same as the others. And that's because it was a real session and done by a real LBL person, but they've used AI to help assemble the write-up of that, because it takes a long time, and a lot of people use AI tools now. But the interesting thing is people can tell the difference in the consciousness between an AI product and a real one. So we thought this was really interesting, and now we're going to ban the use of AI in the assembling of our cases as a result, because we want to keep the consciousness of the work high. But that was feedback from our readers themselves. So people are onto this and understanding that there are places where technology isn't as good as the human form.
Well, not only that, it's very, very early in the stage, and lots of people are jumping on the bandwagon to make money. Obviously, that's what the purpose of so many people in life is, how much money they can make. So we're early stages. It's like going back to about 1900 and jumping into a Ford motor vehicle or something, as opposed to today's Ferrari or whatever. So we have a long way to go. And we have to develop it slowly, in my opinion. I'm not bashing AI, but I am, as somebody who got ripped off myself, I'm saying that at this stage we have to be so careful.
Couldn't agree more. I think that I've been hacked 3 times in terms of my data from 3 of Australia's biggest organisations.
Have you?
No, I won't mention them on air because everyone knows the brands, but I've had 3 letters saying, somebody's stolen your information. And I just think, if technology can do that, because they've done that with technology, what does that really mean for humanity when the technology is in the wrong hands? And that's a very minor thing. So I'm right with you on that. We need to use it very gently, baby steps at first, making sure it has total integrity, it's safe and secure, and then we explore it with maybe just a little bit of trepidation.
But certainly awareness of where it can go, but how we can use it positively and protect ourselves and our whole world.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned cars before, Barry. I mean, the car experience. I had a great old car that I hung on to while we were living in a rural property, and I had it for nearly 20 years. And when I bought the next car, it was like I was stepping into a spaceship compared to what I had before. So, I mean, technology has its place, and it can be the most wonderful servant. We just need to make sure it doesn't become the master.
Precisely. Now, getting back to the Michael Newton Institute, you're a board member and previous president. What's new? What's new at the Institute?
Well, we're having some great fun there. We've been, as I've mentioned on the program before, my role there these days is to run the MNI Beyond program, where Michael always wanted us to take the work further. So we've been doing that by upgrading our trainings. The field of work is expanding. So these days we train people for a whole year instead of a week. And it's like, with different weeks of training in between, and we allocate a mentor to them. And we're moving beyond a process orientation to an experiential one and training our people to be able to handle anything. So we've been doing that for a while. We started our own publishing firm, I think I told you before, to step outside the realms of big publishing, because, then we don't get edited and lose the good stuff sometimes. We've got a lot of respect for Llewellyn, who have helped us up until this point, but it came time for us to be empowered to publish some of our own research. So we're still in partnership with Llewellyn for our other books anyway. But I guess the big thing that we're doing is, for years we've been saying that people want to get further inside our organisation. They want to know more about it. Where do I go after I've read Michael Newton's books and the Institute's books? I've had a session. What do I do next? I don't want to go on Facebook and have conversations because Facebook isn't necessarily the vibration that I seek. So on the 1st of December, we're launching a whole new service called Friends of MNI, Michael Newton Institute. And people can sign for an annual subscription, 4 events a year that people can come to engage with our leaders, ask questions, work in small groups around this type of work. There's a library of wisdom we've accumulated over the years, including some of Michael's hidden files that we came across that have never been shared. And we're going to have conversations on its own platform within the website, where you can ask questions, have conversations, and connect with like-minded people.
Excellent.
So, we've realised that there's a place where the public want to get more interested, and this is this awakening of consciousness and us trying to keep pace with it, with people who are looking for more. Now we've got something to offer them.
Excellent. Well, you asked me before we decided to have a chat today, what is going to happen astrologically.
Yes, I'm dying to hear.
Because we're talking about next year, particularly, and we have at the start of the year, in February, a massive conjunction between two planets, Saturn and Neptune. Now, conjunctions, we associate them with new beginnings, and especially if they're in the first sign of the zodiac. And Saturn and Neptune are going to get together in a conjunction at 0 degrees of Aries for the first time in several thousand years.
Oh, my goodness.
Not just a few years. Okay, they get together every 36 years, but at the first degree of Aries. Now, Aries is the first sign in the zodiac. So it starts off at 0 degrees and builds its way up to 30. Okay, so what we have here in February is Neptune and Saturn at 0 degrees of Aries, a brand new beginning.
Wow. How do you feel it'll play out, Barry? What do you think we'll see?
Well, as some of my research shows, when two planets like this start into a conjunction, it's like they form a brand new super planet and their qualities meld into one another. And it's fascinating to look back and see just what has happened in the past and how chaotic these two planets can be before we even look at the fact of where we are going with them. When we look at some of the 19th and 20th centuries, we see how they are tied to the fate of several nations. In fact, Marx and Engels published the Communist Manifesto following the conjunction back in 1846.
Okay.
And it took place in Aquarius, which is a whole new beginning, like the age of Aquarius, which we are moving into. The 1917 conjunction in the sign of Leo saw the Russian Revolution. The death of Stalin happened in 1953, right on the conjunction on the 5th of March. It was at Libra, by the way, so maybe it was restoring some balance into the world. During the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Capricorn, the Berlin Wall came down on the 10th of November 1989, the exact date of the conjunction. And I was in Europe at the time with a bunch of journos, and we were watching it all happen as we sailed down the Danube. We were watching it on TV. Now, the other thing is 154 years ago or something exactly, I've got the exact numbers here in front of me, but Neptune was at 0 degrees of Aries, and that was the day the US Civil War started.
Wow.
Now, we talked about that before.
Yeah.
So now, Neptune has come all the way around and come back to what we call a Neptune return, returning to that exact degree, and the US Civil War broke out. Now, we're talking about separation. We're talking about all these massive things going on in the world. So, with a new beginning, and we see the other thing, Russia is always involved in these Saturn-Neptune conjunctions, well, not always, but a lot. So what happens? We have Russia and Ukraine. Are we going to have a new beginning? Are we going to have something break out in the US? Will we be able to avert civil war? Or will civil war happen in some form or another? I don't see North and South coming together the way they did before, but there are many different ways to have civil wars, aren't there? So this is a massive time, and this is how it starts. Now, we've already chimed. It doesn't happen like that at the drop of a hat. These are very slow-moving planets, so there's a build-up. And the build-up started a few months ago. It's now paused, but it will start to build up again at the start of 2026, and this conjunction and its effects will be felt right through until the end of 2027.
Okay.
So we are in for, as we talked at the beginning, transformation, whether we like it or not. So that's the main one. There's going to be lots of other, there'll be eclipses, there'll be masses of other things, but The fact also is that just before we go to air now, Uranus is associated with change, and because it's in the sign of Taurus, which is the Earth, or one of its functions, we have the planet Mars coming up against it is a direct 180-degree opposition on the 5th of November. In other words, while we are on air. Now, Mars is the god of war. Uranus can bring eruptions, earthquakes, volcanoes. We've already seen the one in Jamaica. There's the one in the Philippines. So we could be in for something short term, and that can be just a little lead-in. But the big one is the start of 2026. Where do we go? Well, we've been talking about it here on our program. So who knows? Because the world is a big place. There's so much chaos. So what does that say to you? I know I've hit you out of the blue with that thought.
Well, I mean, it does sound like, transformation isn't always pretty, Barry.
No.
And for us to move to a new place, sometimes there's grief and there's turmoil and everything that we need to do to let go of. The more we can ride the wave and not fight it, I think that's a better approach for us to see change as positive and not as something that threatens us. I think that's a way that we can look at it both individually and collectively. But I think we need to acknowledge that there's a lot wrong with this world and the way it's run and the way that we experience it. And we just can't do it any longer.
No, we can't.
And, if we want to build a new world, it starts now by dismantling the old and starting the new. So I guess the more people that do their own individual journeys, that adds to the collective, and we all become particles in a wave that's heading in the same direction.
Yeah. On that note, these two planets are two very different planets entirely. Saturn wants to build strong structures, make things real, but Neptune wants to dissolve and make things mysterious, vague, confusion, the fog, the mist, whatever. So when they get together, there's going to be a lot of action happening there. On a personal level with people, this is a perfect opportunity for people to transform themselves, their own identity as an individual, and ask and explore the question, who am I?
Yeah.
And I think what we've been talking about, we have to start right here in our own consciousness and then move on.
Sounds like an invitation to remember who we really are, doesn't it?
Yes, because I think a lot of people have forgotten who they are, or they've never ever come to terms with it. When I was doing consulting in astrology, my prime aim was to help people to discover who they are. And that was, astrology is all about that. It's not all about relationships and will I buy a new house or whatever. No. Astrology is understanding who you are and what you are all about. And I think we've come right back to 0 degrees of Aries. Who am I? Time to start again from the beginning.
Yeah, I love that. And once we make that discovery, then you're able to decide who you are and who you choose to be. Once you've got that expansive awareness of who you really are. And, I say this to people a lot. These are disguises. These are disguises for your magnificence, for the multidimensional eternal being that you are. When you start to live your life through the disguise and not as the disguise, life changes.
Yeah. Well, I think also when you discover who am I, you will then start to think, well, what about other people?
Yeah.
Are they thinking about that? And how can I work with them in some way to be able to, for the common good? So it's a matter of moving on from just me to be able to start that transformation we talked about when we started our chat.
Yeah, I love that. The move from me to we is a very powerful one. And we've seen a lot of me in recent years with sort of small splinter groups who are saying, listen to me or look at me or whatever it might be. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean, everybody's just where they're at and everyone's on their own journey. But if we can look at how we can be the ripple effect to serve others, then I think it's that energy of service that's going to take humanity to a new place.
Yes, that's right. And also, we talked about this before a couple of years back about the materialism. And I know Michael Newton came through with a message on that one. We are too materialistic. And that, I think, is part of this evolution. Sure, we have to pay the rent. Sure, we have to put food on the table, whatever. But materialism is not a god. Materialism is something we can choose whatever degree we want to participate in.
I agree. I think we've been trapped in that loop in the lower parts of Maslow's hierarchy, that it's all about self-esteem and safety, and the more money we have, the safer we'll feel and all of that. But when you start to move further up his model and you get through transcendence, which was his later model, and you look at self-actualization, which was part of his earlier model, that's when you make a discovery that the world's not actually about us. We're here to serve the world. We're not here for the world to serve us.
And while we're doing that, we are growing as a soul. Our soul is evolving. And for me, with my research, that is the purpose of why we are here, to evolve as a soul.
Yep. Couldn't agree more, Barry. And that evolution that ripples out from us and touches the hearts and minds of others helps us all head in the same direction.
That's for sure. Pete, you and I can chat for ages. We do privately.
We often do.
We do. We talk many, many different things. But thank you so much for your time, and thank you for your wisdom, your research, and your knowledge. Yeah. Because I think we've hopefully helped make people think, and that is the purpose of Radio Out There, to help people think for themselves and not be told what to do by other people or other organisations or politicians or anybody.
Yeah, and thank you, Barry, for what you do. You've been doing this for so long now and helping so many people and bringing new thought to the world. I mean, this is great what you do. I so enjoy our chats. It's like we're on the phone, but we get to share that with other people.
We do. Pete, good to talk to you.
You too, Barry.
Ah, yes, always fascinating chats with Pete Smith. A lot to think about there. And, of course, with February coming up and that Saturn-Neptune conjunction, well, what about me? Who am I? What do I need to do myself? Those questions and a lot more. I'll leave you to have a think about it. Pete Smith, contact him at the Institute for Quantum Consciousness.com. Thanks for your company, and I'll be with you next week on Radio Out There. Bye now.